Grenville Lodge Enigma is going to be absolutely impossible to solve, and I seem to have got myself caught up in a cognitive containment loop. Though it seems that the Department S34 network still don't want this information from being released into the public domain. So there is still some validity and value to what I am talking about. Indeed, the Grenville Lodge Enigma links the activities of Department S34 and the patients at the Grenville Lodge Institute to the Russian psychiatric facilities such as Orlovka Asylum. Indeed, it's interesting to note that Russian psychiatric patients are kidnapped by proxies of the Paracelsus group with the complicity of certain corrupt Russian elites who are themselves Royal Arch Freemasons of the Russian chapter, such as those Freemasons operating out of Gamayun Lodge in Voronezh. Indeed, the Russian chapter is a bastion of Royal Arch Freemason, British Royal Arch Freemason power in the Russian Federation. And a lot of these kidnappings are carried out with the complicity of such individuals who are initiates of Gamayun Lodge in Voronezh. Indeed, it seems that the Orlovka Asylum in Voronezh is one of the main psychiatric testing facilities for the GRU, i.e. the Russian Military Intelligence Capacity. And indeed, the Paracelsus group selects certain individuals from this testing project for kidnapping by Paracelsus group proxies to be transferred to the Wiltshire countryside, where they are either completely incarcerated or at times they become psychiatric vagrants. So it's all very strange to consider. Indeed, it's interesting to note that the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst take advantage of the Paracelsus group's auctions and trades as they utilize encrypted coding in the minds of the paranoid schizophrenic super spies to operate as spies for the breakaway civilization, which is the rogue intelligence network of the Nazi continuum, i.e. the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. And indeed, these schizophrenic super spies serve a purpose as assets of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst as well as Department S34. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. I also believe that the Russian GRU may preempt the kidnapping of these psychiatric patients and encrypt them with certain coding, which allows for the paranoid schizophrenic super spies of Russian heritage to basically spy without consent or knowledge on Wiltshire for the Russian GRU. So it's all a very complex state of affairs indeed. Indeed, the Grenville Lodge Institute, at which I was a patient, is handled by Department S34, who are the master mind fracturers and have based their knowledge of mind control not only on the Nazi scientists of the Second World War, but also on the Jesuit order. Indeed, the Jesuit order, who are Masonic, were basically the first operatives to completely decrypt and then re-encrypt the mind. So it's interesting to consider that the Department S34 has access to all of the details of Jesuit mind control experimentation beginning in the 1500s, and are basically utilizing this Jesuit mind shrinker mechanism of control to compartmentalize the minds of schizophrenic test subjects and patients of Grenville Lodge, who then become schizophrenic super spies, as well as those kidnapped from such psychiatric facilities as Orlovka Asylum and brought to Wiltshire to participate in the Roundway experiment. Indeed, the Roundway experiment is the Wiltshire-based branch of the Grenville Lodge Institute. So it's interesting how it all links up. Indeed, is a subterranean tunnel system leading directly from Devizes Police Headquarters to Grenville Lodge. And these tunnel systems are utilized for smuggling psychiatric patients, as well as smuggling in illicit goods that are basically traded by the devices police networks to fund the black budget operations of the Roundway experiment and the Paracelsus Group's operations. So it's all very interesting to note how all of this interlinks, and indeed Moonraker Lodge number 8747, Freemasonic Lodge in Devices, oversees a lot of the transactions between criminal proxies and the Department S34 network. So it's interesting to consider, indeed. The entire Masonic setup in Wiltshire is centered around the Roundway experiment. And indeed, military officers from Warminster Military Base are also completely aware of the black projects being coordinated by Department S34, and indeed Department S34 have compromised various British military assets to become a part of this overarching mind control programming agenda, complete with psychotronic beaming grids and satellite intelligence utilized to track and control the paranoid schizophrenic super spies who are part of Department S34's Project Aniseed, which interestingly is itself a sub-branch of the MI6 Mindgate program, mind control operations, which is the MI6 equivalent of the CIA's MK Ultra. Indeed, many MI6 agents are themselves compromised by Department S34 also. As I've stated, Department S34 is a rogue clandestine agency created by disgruntled MI5, MI6 Officer of Strategic Services agents in collusion with a Nazi Black Project team of neuroscientists, psychiatrists, and intelligence operatives who were brought to the United Kingdom by way of Project Moribund, which is the UK equivalent of the Operation Paperclip Black Project in the United States. So it's all very interesting indeed. As I stated before, the Russian schizophrenic super spies that are brought to Wiltshire are encrypted with certain coding, which means that the GRU can hack into their brainwaves and harness data on Wiltshire locations and Wiltshire facilities, especially those Wiltshire facilities that the Russian schizophrenic super spies pass through. So it's all very interesting to note this is turning into a very interesting Cold War science fiction. However, it is entirely true. So it is not science fiction, technically. Although this saga does bear very many tropes of Cold War science fiction. Indeed, it's interesting to note that the GRU are coordinating clandestine brain hacking on Russian schizophrenic super spies, as well as myself. Indeed, the GRU have hacked my brain. These I've stated while I was in the Orlovka Asylum, I was programmed by Russian chapter psychiatrists operating under the auspices of a GRU operation. And these Russian chapter psychiatrists encrypted my brain with Cyrillic ciphers. Indeed, there were also non-Royal Arch GRU technicians who encrypted my brain also with coding that would allow for me to basically spy for the GRU in the Wiltshire countryside through my brainwaves, basically. So it's interesting to note the GRU harness my brainwaves and the data is harvested in Moscow. So it's all very strange to consider that I am being utilized by various agencies all at once, indeed. I began as a Department S34 asset, but now I'm technically a quadruple agent, really, if not of a higher degree of espionage confusion than that. So it's all very interesting to consider and what this all means. Indeed, the Paracelsus Group auctions are held once a month in crypt systems beneath buildings in the Wiltshire countryside. Indeed, Moonraker Lodge number 8747's crypt system hosted the last auction of paranoid schizophrenic super spies at the end of July, and there is one coming up beneath Warminster Military Base in the next few days. So it's interesting to consider. Indeed, these auctions are usually coincide with small escapes by Russian schizophrenic super spies, and indeed the Wiltshire police networks are always on alert to deal with these runaway assets and place them back in the custody of Department S34 operatives and Paracelsus Group auctioneers. So it's all very interesting to note indeed. It seems that at certain times there are at least 1,000 Russian schizophrenic super spies in the labyrinthine vault tunnel systems beneath Wiltshire. Indeed, this is all part of a Freemasonic black project coordinated by the Paracelsus Group for the mind fracturing and behavior modification experiments of the Department S34 networks, who are basically creating a new form of spy. Indeed, it's interesting to note that the Department S34 target individuals with schizophrenia because the fact that schizophrenics already have vast internal worlds and compartmentalization of the brain means that there is already basically a hardwired frequency within the brains of schizophrenics that can be utilized for espionage missions. And if the asset is caught, then they can just repeat a monologue basically of schizophrenic jargon, and this makes them basically resistant to interrogation by the enemy. So it's all very interesting to note indeed. These schizophrenic super spies are still being utilized in a Cold War legacy agenda, whereby the British Royal Arch Freemasons are still at war with elements of Russian intelligence, not including the Russian chapter, such as the initiates of the Gamayun Lodge in Voronezh. Indeed, the Russian chapter are all elements operating for British intelligence. By being Royal Arch Freemasons, they are all operating for British intelligence. Indeed, Vladimir Putin is a compromised Royal Arch Freemason whose loyalties are unknown. So it's interesting to consider. Vladimir Putin has been a Royal Arch Freemason since the 70s. And it's interesting to note that within the British intelligence services, those operatives who are not Royal Arch Freemasons do not know what is going on and are often asking, why is it so infrequent that Russian spies are captured by the British intelligence services? This is due to the fact that the Royal Arch Freemasons have a monopoly on the espionage agenda of British intelligence and will not arrest Russian spies who are initiates of the Russian chapter. So it's interesting to note, indeed, these Russian chapter operatives are double agents anyway, as they are supposedly operating under the auspices of being a GRU or KGB SVR agent, but are actually operating for the network, in inverted commas, i.e. British Masonic intelligence. So it's all very interesting to note, indeed. There is also the triple agent factor to consider, that these operatives at times operate for the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst and the German Masonic lodges. However, the agenda of British Royal Arch Freemasonry and the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst German Masonic lodges are pretty much identical. And indeed, we can see this in the operations of Department S34 that takes in elements of British Royal Arch Freemasonry and the German Masonic lodges, including the rite of strict observance of German Freemasonry and the Ordo Templi Orientis, which is itself a highly valued intelligence front. Well, a highly valued occult front, for intelligence operations. So it's all very interesting to note how all of this interlinks. And that there does seem to be an overarching organization wrapped up in this entire agenda, and that is the Asylum Keepers Guild, who were formed by German psychiatrists in the 1700s and coordinate the psychiatric facilities in the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation. So it's all very interesting to note. And this means that the patients at Grenville Lodge are under the ultimate authority of the Asylum Keepers Guild, who are tracking the brainwave data of paranoid schizophrenic super spies for study, which links itself to the extraterrestrial agenda and the transhumanist agenda, what with the Asylum Keepers Guild being a high IQ society and wishing to participate in off-world exploration and the singularity. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. The Asylum Keepers Guild are die-hard eugenicists and Freemasons. So it's interesting to consider all of these networks are attempting to harness the human mind for some sort of purpose that I'm not entirely sure of yet. And they utilize paranoid schizophrenics as test subjects in this attempt to progress human intelligence. And indeed, paranoid schizophrenics are disposable. And indeed, they are chosen because no one will ever believe what they say. So it doesn't matter if a paranoid schizophrenic goes out into the public and starts talking about all of these agendas concerning Freemasonic transhumanism and the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, because nobody will believe a word that the paranoid schizophrenic says, so everything is covered. And indeed, paranoid schizophrenics make the best operatives for deep cover courier operations, because the compartmentalization of the schizophrenic mind is perfect for the creation of layers of alters that the intelligence agencies wish to produce to create individual operatives that cannot be interrogated for their information. And indeed, the layering within the mind of paranoid schizophrenics of mind control access codes only heightens this ability to keep a paranoid schizophrenic super spy from interrogation and possibly being compromised by the alternate enemy. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, during my time in Olovka Asylum, I didn't actually betray any information that was stored within my alters that I was to courier to an operative in Voronezh, but the GRU conducted a neurochemical override on my brain. Indeed, the Russian chapter psychiatrists were aware of my mission in Russia. However, the GRU operatives who were not Russian chapter of Royal Arch Freemasonry operatives were not. So it's interesting to consider there is an ongoing intelligence war within the intelligence services of the Russian Federation between Royal Arch Freemason Russian chapter operatives, who are very much coordinated by British intelligence capacities, and those who wish for autonomy for the Russian Federation and the Russian intelligence services. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst also have an interest in this agenda as they oversee the Cold War matrix. So it's all very interesting to consider. And indeed, the part that the paranoid schizophrenic super spies play in the Cold War matrix is as human test subjects for mind control experimentation being perpetrated by both the intelligence services of the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation. So it's all a rather strange and convoluted saga. However, it all adds up to a key factor. The Asylum Keepers Guild, this network of originally German psychiatrists but now taking in psychiatrists of many nations, is a eugenicist operation attempting to remodel mankind in a transhumanist philosophy. So it's all very interesting to note the paranoid schizophrenic super spies are test subjects for the eventual merger of human beings with artificial intelligence, which is all rather dark, and indeed the remote hacking of the brain via microchipping is merely a part of this agenda, and indeed the psychotronic weapons experimentation is also a key part of this agenda. Indeed, the psychotronic weapons experimentation on paranoid schizophrenic super spies serves to keep the paranoid schizophrenic super spy in a state of neural distress, whereby they cannot expose networks such as Department S34, the Paracelsus Group, and the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. Indeed, it's all very interesting to note that all of this is being overseen by a German consortium. So it's interesting to note that there does seem to be a Nazi international, i.e. a Nazi breakaway civilization. However, to call these networks of individuals National Socialists would be a fallacy, as they are no longer Hitler fetishists necessarily. They are post-Nazi in their ideology. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, it is noteworthy to consider that the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst handle special operations of the GRU. So it's all very strange to consider that I seem to have got myself caught up in an absolute labyrinth of international espionage. Indeed, however, I am not a valued intelligence operative. I am merely a paranoid schizophrenic test subject, originally programmed by Department S34 at the Grenville Lodge Institute in Buckinghamshire in the United Kingdom, and later at Orlovka Asylum by Russian chapter Royal Arch Freemason psychiatrists and non-Russian chapter Russian psychiatrists also. So it's interesting to consider both of these networks put different levels of coding into my brain for different purposes, almost simultaneously indeed. One day I would be experimented on by a Russian chapter Royal Arch Freemason psychiatrist, and the next day I would be experimented on by a solely GRU psychiatrist. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. It's very difficult to determine the loyalties of individuals in the espionage world. And indeed, paranoid schizophrenic super spies, therefore, do not technically belong to any singular agency, no matter how much a singular agency would like to believe that the paranoid schizophrenic super spy is an asset of theirs. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider the amount of time that Wiltshire police spend hunting paranoid schizophrenic super spies, who basically become psychiatric vagrants after escaping from the auction containment facilities beneath Moonraker Lodge number 8747, Waterrose and Sons Butcher's Shop, Roundway Asylum, and the Warminster military base. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of this interlinks and the many cosmic forces at play here. Indeed, I'm going to leave it there now.